Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and Onslaught Light is here. This is your opportunity to play 7 versus 7 in only tier 8 tanks without the pressure of being able to climb and fall in the ranks. So firstly, just what is Onslaught? Onslaught is a different game mode where there are less maps and there are positions on the map that you want to try and take to be able to then gain advantages in the battle. More on that in a second. Let's explain. 7 versus 7, and you get to select the tank that you want to play on the map. So no more of, for example, you spawn in on a city map and you have to play a light tank. You can pick your favorite tank for the map that you play. Today, you see me playing on my Plays for Free account, and I'm going to be playing in the Kampfpanzer that I managed to get by completing that mission marathon all of those years ago. Kampfpanzer is fantastic because it has really good damage per minute, insane damage per minute with regards to its HE rounds, and lots of people play lightly armored tanks inside this. So what you're seeing me here is go straight into one of the radar sites, or the radar tower. What this means is that after I take this comm center, I will be able to press my 9 key, which you see me do immediately, and I will spot all of the enemy vehicles wherever they are on the map. And this means that hopefully my team are going to be able to shoot them. And Iron Arnie's a bit of a silly sausage. He actually manages to shoot me and get spotted, but unluckily my team isn't able to do anything about it. Okay, so one thing you might be noticing immediately is that vehicles are getting spotted for less time. And that's because in Onslaught Light, you are spotted for 3 seconds, unless you take into account things like designated target or the directive that also manages to extend that, the designated target directive. So that means that when you're pointing your gun at someone, it will be... Well, firstly, I'm dropping an artillery barrage there. When you're pointing your gun at someone, if you've got designated target, they're actually going to be spotted for like 5 seconds. And if you've got the directive, they're going to be spotted for more. So you can see I'm dropping artillery barrages on the enemy team while I'm also engaging this Iron Arnie. Now, tanks have abilities. The Kampfpanzer, you can see, has an ability called Fire Cover, and this actually allows you to drop an artillery strike on the enemy team. And depending on what level you get it by doing damage, it's either going to do 50, 95, or 150 damage. And once it reaches level 2 and level 3, it actually does a 6 and an 8-second stun, a bit like artillery. And that will allow you to lock down your opponents, get them stunned. But remember, medkit cooldowns are reduced to 45 seconds, which means that they will be able to heal the stuns a lot quicker inside this. Or should I say not quicker, but more often, as it's instantaneous, right? But this kind of artillery barraging, this fire cover, really does add up inside this game mode. And oh, who's this? Centurion 5-1 right in front of us. I'm going to fire 1 regular round and start loading HE, but is this going to be a misplay? Am I going to pen this shot? I actually do for 339. Now I go back to AP because I won't be able to pen HE through the front of their tank. Unfortunately, the LT-432 manages to hit me from the distance, and this Centurion 5-1 also has a rate of fire buff by the looks of it. The Centurion 5-1, a bit like the Obsidian there. And I'm just going to drop another artillery barrage on the Centurion 5-1. Looks like they're turning around. And it's very interesting that you're spotted for so little. Another thing you might notice on the minimap is the proxy spotting circle has been changed from 50 meters down to 25. So that means that the Centurion could still be in that cap circle. I would have seen them. So we're going to intuition switch here, fire an HE shell right into the back of the Centurion. My team is still down a tank, and we're also down hit points as well. This has been a tremendous round of Onslaught Light so far. And because we're not spotted for very long, that means that we can maneuver. We can be able to change the direction of our travel, but it also means that it's harder to be able to find the enemy tanks unless they just sit out in the open there. Alright, Centurion 5-1 down to 184 hit points, the alpha damage of my tank. See, we're going to switch there again when we're no longer spotted, just to be able to try and keep things funky. In this kind of a situation, I got to go in. I can't really worry about who's in the center. Got to try and finish off the Centurion. Oh no, disaster, we bounce, and there's an LT-432 coming as well. We're going to finish off the Centurion after we lose an extra 200 hit points from that ricochet. Now we've just got to go after this LT-432, who seems to be foolishly firing HE at me here, thinking that I'm very lightly armored. I'm actually going to drop an artillery barrage on the cap circle while also engaging this LT-432, and that allows me to reset the IS-3. So once you get good in Onslaught, you can do multiple things at the same time. So by interrupting the cap circle while also going after the LT-432, we ram him, and hopefully we're going to high roll. We don't, but hopefully we're going to wiggle, and we do, and we manage to avoid him picking us up. He turns his turret in dismay, looking for, I guess, some solace in front of him, but I wasn't missing that one. And I get to drop again. And if you're wondering how I'm moving so quickly on the minimap, here's a bit of a tip. If you hold control and you right-click the minimap when you've already got one of your artillery barrages ready, you will be able to pinpoint where you want the artillery barrage to be. And also, for light tanks, where you want the scout plane to be. That will allow you to quickly be able to drop things while you're in combat with other vehicles. Now look, that might seem a little alien. It's something that you'll only start to really be able to do after tens, if not hundreds, if not like 1,000 games of Onslaught. But once you do manage to get good with all of the abilities all over the map, then you can drop them very quickly. You don't have to waste time. Bit of a tip as well, you can see if you hit your barrage, because your ability will level up. And do we manage to finish off this Tiger 2? Oh yes we do. What a awesome round of Onslaught Light for the Kampfpanzer. An unusual close game here that we saw 4,500 damage, but you'll have to see just how much in the post-game stats that we actually got. Next up, I'm going to be playing the Obsidian once again on my Plays for Free account with no premium consumable, and the Obsidian is an absolute... It has an ability which allows it to fire quicker. It's called Fury, and this means that my reload will be reduced by 35%, and also my dispersion when I'm turning my hull and when I'm turning my turret will also be reduced by 45%, meaning that you don't need vert stabs with a build like this. Accordingly, all you really need is a vents, gun rammer. I guess you could drop the vents and take a durability device instead if you wanted. But the Obsidian is so slow, even on a close quarters combat map like this, so I'm still going to be using Grousers, especially on the free-to-play. Okay, so this tank, no one really thinks about it, but these abilities have meant that this thing just becomes absolutely preposterous. We're going to go straight forwards here, hopefully catch the LT-432 before he manages to get the artillery barrage. And it does take a little while for this tank to build up, but once it does manage to build up, its ability is going to be crazy. I actually have to hit my shots, though, for my ability to build up. Now, I don't want to use this until I get to level 3, because obviously if I use it at level 2, the rate of fire bonus is only going to be 30, whereas I really want to have the 35 bonus here. And once you've started, you can't really reset it unless it times out. So now I can press my 7 key and look at this thing's rate of fire. No, this is not a bug. No, this is not an autoloader. This is a tank now with a 2.7 reload. Now on my main account, that's going to be even better. It's going to be more like 2.5 with a premium consumable. And if you were to put bounty or bond equipment with regards to the rammer or the vents on this thing, you're just going to get stupid levels as to what you can achieve with this tank. And just like that, we've carved through 2 vehicles, but we are only just getting started in this game. We're going to hit the AMX on the move to keep our gun reload speed increased and just keep on firing. Every time you hit a tank from 150 meters or less, or you ram them, it resets the timer, which allows you to just keep going and going and going. And so this is pretty much like an autoloader right now. Can't really think of an autoloader that does 200 damage off the top of my head. Kind of a bit like one of the French ones. When I think about it, this is like a 1390 with a little bit less alpha that just doesn't actually have to spend the downtime afterwards. And with that, while we're having to fire a few gold rounds here because it's a 7032 and I'm not going to be able to deal with them otherwise, this was just ugly. Ugly for the enemy team. Knocked out my loader. How am I meant to own you if I don't have a loader, right? Right now, I could probably just shoot at the top of the tank here. I'm so healthy, I don't really need to worry, but I'll go for the driver's hatch instead. It's a bit of a weak point on the IS-6, or is it? Did they buff that these days? I don't even know. But all I know is that managing to do this much damage in 2.5 minutes. This battle was 2.5 minutes long. We've done 5,000. We managed to do 5,200 damage in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Yeah, that's Onslaught Light for you. Obsidian, an absolute powerhouse in it. Pick it for your close quarters combat maps and laugh as you farm. So it's not just medium tanks you can play inside Onslaught, and I'm going to show you how I would play an LT-432. Although I currently have the Obsidian selected, you're going to see that we can switch that out and pick what we would want to play, which is an LT-432 for this map. Now, light tanks start with Recon Flight, and interestingly, they start with it at level 1. What this means is that you can, if you're quick, you can spot the whole of the enemy team right from the start of the battle. So you press your 7 key, right-click the minimap, and then click again, and then that allows you to spot the whole of the enemy team. Now that did look quite quick. It's a bit easier to do once you've done it a few times. But just by spotting the enemy team, it gives your team the knowledge of what they have, and you can try and figure all of that out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spot the Borask who's trying to take the radar, and my team is going to interrupt that. And yeah, you can try and sneakily take the radar, but really if a light tank knows what they're doing, especially on a map like Redshire, yeah, no radar for you. That's a whole Borask down. And because I managed to get rid of the Borask with my plane, I can use my plane again. Because if your team spots, well, shoots your spots, you get your plane so quickly. So we get our plane again, and I'm thinking about where can I drop the plane again. I'm going to try and spot it over on those vehicles, and I'm going to use the artillery barrage to interrupt them before they manage to pick up the artillery barrage themselves. And now I'm going to hunt the Borask. So I just did 550 damage to those 2 tanks over there, and I stopped them. I'm going to spot the Borask here, but I'm not actually going to need to. An LT-432 style, we're going to go in and ram. And once again, this time I'm on my main account, so the premium consumable definitely helping out my ram there. I rammed that Borask for 565. Did I just get 3 Borasks taken down at the start of this battle? Well, I guess this is cruelty to French tanks, right? In a Soviet light tank. And this game was just pretty much just Onslaught perfection. We just dominated the game with our abilities. We gave the enemy no room to breathe. And you will be able to do this too once you get good in Onslaught. And one thing that's really interesting is that up until this point, when there's been skill-based matchmaking, I haven't been playing against casual players when I've been playing Tier 10 Onslaught. And while there are way better players than me in Tier 10, I did manage to get Champion every season I've played Onslaught so far on my main, and Gold on my free-to-play, just so I can be able to get the Hurricane on multiple accounts. And I have to admit, the way that it has transitioned your knowledge into Onslaught Light is pretty scary as to what you can do. So if you're an experienced Onslaught player, you can go into Onslaught Light and absolutely farm up. And I can imagine that's quite demoralizing for a lot of players, that they have all of these sweat lords like myself now jumping in and absolutely farming it up. And 2 minutes and 40 seconds into this game, we managed to get ourselves like 6,300 combined, roughly. Well, more like 6,500 combined, actually. Just 3 monster games for 3 monster tanks inside Onslaught. And these are the 3 tanks that I would probably just pick. You can try and use the new CS52C if you manage to pick one of those up for gold, although I just really don't think it's as good as a Kampfpanzer. I think you'll do better in a Kampfpanzer. There are a variety of other vehicles that you can play, but I feel like these are the best. And it's interesting seeing so many people playing Borasks when they're just so fragile, at least for me. And I would far rather play an LT-432. Although, you know, getting double tapped by that 720 damage and then them quickly reloading again with their autoloader ability can still be pretty brutal. And so there you have it. That is how to dominate Onslaught Light with a variety of different tanks on a variety of different maps. Now look, as I said, it might take you tens, hundreds, if not 1,000 games before you get comfortable enough with all of the abilities and you know which engagements that you're going to win. And while I'm sure a lot of you will despair at what this kind of version of World of Tanks looks like, it definitely is more of a MOBA than it is kind of the strategy game that you would feel in the random queue. But the results can end up being pretty lucrative. In that Kampfpanzer game, we did 6,000 damage, 1,800 base experience. That was 154,000 credits profit in a 5-minute round. In the game on Ensk in the Obsidian, that was 5,200 damage in under 3 minutes, 108,000 credits profit. Not so good when you have to spam a little bit of gold. And the final game in the LT-432 for that 1,591 base for that 4,000 damage in like 2.5 minutes was 127,000 credits profit. So that is amazing. But when you factor in the time that you have to spend actually getting into the battle, it's kind of comparable to the random queue, if not front, and probably worse than front line. But the real bonus, of course, has to be all of the different rewards you get for progressing through the Onslaught Light season. You manage to get yourself 600,000 credits every few stages, lots of components, lots of bonds, and even a style on top of the 3 5 times experience games that you get multiple times throughout. Now, that does require you to play pretty much for 8 of the 15 days, and it's still not too late if any of you are watching this video and thinking, this looks like the game mode for me. Just make sure you go in, do your dailies, Because if you don't, you just simply really won't be able to get the progression points to be able to get through it. One of the saddest things is when you're on the losing team, and even though you feel like you've had a really good game, if you aren't in the top 2, you're only getting 1 point of progression. That is going to take a long time to farm 750 points. However, I must say to Wargaming that this constant putting in of so many components in these game modes that players may or may not want to participate in, but honestly, those components are almost mandatory if you want to be competitive inside the random queue on more and more of your vehicles, because experimental equipment, it's the best on quite a few. I can think of 5 or 10 different tanks which I feel that I couldn't play anymore unless I had experimental equipment on them. And so Wargaming effectively forcing people who just want to play the random queue into game modes that they may or may not be interested in to stay competitive is a tall ask. And my final opinion on Onslaught Light is it's kind of fun for about half an hour to an hour max, but after that, I'm so bored of it. It's really, you pick the same tanks for the same maps, you drive into the same positions, and the battle pretty much just goes depending on who's going to win the fight. But it's that complete lack of variety that means that this feels almost more like checkers, whereas the random queue feels more like chess. Let's say the World of Tanks was releasing right now in 2024 and it had never existed before, and this was the game that Wargaming presented. This thing would never take off. I feel that it doesn't have the longevity, it doesn't have that growing of interest, and also let's not forget that really Onslaught Light, quite often it kind of becomes who is the biggest whale that has the most tier 8 premium tanks at their disposal so they can customize them to put them on the different maps. And the amount of tier 8 tanks, am I going to stop scrolling soon? There we go. That's just ridiculous. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my opinion and look at Onslaught Light. Really hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about Onslaught Light. Do you think it's fantastic? Have you been playing it a lot? Is it your favorite game mode in World of Tanks now? Or have you played it, wasn't really your thing, but now you feel trapped trying to get the rewards? And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Monday, I'm going live all day on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby with brand new drop tokens. So come along and get some fat loot while hopefully checking out a few good games. So really looking forward to seeing you all live now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic and hopefully I'll see you soon.